Hello and welcome to another session on change management. Students, in this session we're going to talk about the change management process, which includes preparing for change, managing change, and reinforcing change. So we're going to talk about the complete process of change, that how organizations are adopting the changes. And we will discuss at the end part of the lecture about the approaches that the organization can adopt to change process, the top-down approach and also the bottom-up approach. So let's start from the change management process. What exactly is a change management process? The change management process is the sequence of steps. It means, while we're talking about a process, so normally a process involves some steps. So change management process also involves some steps to be taken by the organizations in order to introduce change. So those steps can be activities that change management team or project leader would follow to apply change. Or in other words, we can say that it is the sequence of actions or activities to be performed by the change manager in order to initiate the change and also introduce a change. But before the organizations are setting themselves for change, one thing is very important, that they should take a minute or second to think about the change, whether the business really needs change, whether the change is realistic, and what will be the benefits of the change, what will be the change process. So the organizations should just answer all these questions and then continue to the change process. Generally, the change process involves the following steps: preparing for change, managing change, and reinforcing change. So let's discuss that in the first step, organizations, while preparing for change, so what they should do. Coming to preparing for change, which is also called the assessment of the organization, that organizations are assessing or evaluating themselves, whether they're ready for change or not ready for change. So let's talk more about the preparation of the organizations for change. So in this process, the first option or the first element is identifying the problem. So identification of the problem exactly means that what are the opportunities and threats for the company while they're applying or adopting a change. So the change agent, the leaders or the managers should evaluate, should study that from the change that they are initiating, so what will be the benefits, what will be the outcomes for the organization. So identifying the problem means finding or identifying the opportunities and the threats. Or in other words, we can say that what is the necessity, the need that organization is going for change. So basically what the organizations do, they are defining the problem. The problem may be internal or external. It might be an internal stimulus or external stimulus, which is forcing organization for change. So first, the organization should find the root cause or the root problem or the need for change. Then the organization has to develop the problem statement, which describes or illustrates in detail regarding the change nature, and also shows the effect of the change on the company. By doing this, while the organizations are developing or identifying need for a change, so after this, the change should be understood by the employees and also by the people who are who are going to be affected by the change. They have to understand that why the organization is going to adopt a change, and also they have to learn if the change was not adopted, so what will be the consequences. And also about identifying the problem, the organization should collect data regarding the change, and also rearrange the structures of the organization for change, the technologies and the people, and also involve all those people in the change process that who are going to be affected. The second, the data analysis. Once the data regarding the change is collected by the organization, that data should be analyzed in terms of the advantages of the change. So what are the advantages or the benefits that the company or the organization is going to get or obtain after implementing a successful change, or what are the disadvantages. So there should be a comparative study of the advantages and disadvantages. If the advantages are more from the change, so it should be adopted, or the disadvantages, so the company will just look for another option. And also they should make a plan that what should be the risk management, how they can just reduce or minimize the risk level and the negative consequences of the change on the business. Going on, the organizations, while they're planning the change process, so they have to have strategic determination. So what is a strategic determination? It refers to the planning and execution of the change. So it means they have to plan the change. So what should be the planning? What should be the activities? What should be the functions to be performed in the execution, the successful execution of the change? It means the organization should identify change factors, that why the change is going to be adopted, and make a plan that how to respond successfully and effectively to those factors which are pushing the organization or driving the organization for a change. And also the strategic determination, identifying possible solutions. It means response to a change. And also it should plan the barriers, those resistance which can be created in the process of the implementation or the planning of the change. So the organization should just plan for those barriers, create some strategies in order to avoid the pitfalls or the negative impact of the change on business, or also the resistance by the employees or by the system for change. So the next is the SWOT analysis. The managers or the change agents, they have to analyze, they have to perform analysis, and they can use the SWOT as a tool for analyzing the environmental forces, the organizational forces, the task demand, and personal needs. The forces which are in the external environment or in the internal environment of the organizations, which can impact the change, or which can resist the change. So through SWOT analysis, the organization should study the internal and external environment and then proceed to the next stage. Coming to the next stage, that's about managing change. This is the phase of planning and implementation of the change process. In this stage, the managers, they have to perform many activities. But first, let's talk about what is planning and implementation stage of the change. We can say that the planning and implementation stage is a stage in the process of the change which helps the managers to manage the change effectively. And also it ensures the budget, schedule, scope of the change, that how big is the change or how small is the change, and also it designs the communication channels, the communication means or systems, and also the resource allocations, that resources should be properly allocated to various parts or to various divisions of the organization that who are going to be involved or affected by the change. So we can say that change management plan can assist the organizations to minimize the negative impact of change on businesses, on employees, even customers, and other important stakeholders who are related to change. During the planning or implementation process of the change, the managers, they're setting goals and specific measurable objectives. It means while the organization is initiating a change, so they have to have some specific goals, objectives for the change. Either they want to grow their organization, either they want to improve their performances, either the external factors are just push them for change, or either they want to achieve, like a competitive advantage, over other businesses in the market. So what are the goals? The goals and objectives that they are selecting should be measurable. It means they should be just like the goals which the organization can measure and can achieve them, through their current, organizational structure and also resources. Establishing the who, how, what, and when of a change. It means who are the change agents, the change leaders and managers. Who are the people who will be affected by the change? So it should be identified. How the change will be adopted, how the change will be brought. So it should be planned perfectly. What should be the change? What should be the impact of the change on the organization? So it should be answered. And when will be the change implemented, or the change will be executed? So all these WH questions should be answered in a planning stage. Allocating resources. As earlier we talked about, a change needs resources, a change needs a budget, and also evaluation methods. So in the planning stage, it should be planned that the resources for the change should be properly distributed or allocated to the various divisions who are involved in the change process. And also, there should be some mechanism, there should be some evaluation methods, there should be some techniques and procedures or strategies in order to evaluate the change, whether the change is beneficial or not. Plan for the resistance management. We all know that the organizations coming across with one of the biggest problem is the resistance to change. Normally, change is resisted by the employees. It's a general nature of the employees that they are resisting the change, and particularly when the change is coming from the top. It means, while the organizations, they're adopting, the top-down approach for change. So generally that approach is resisted quite a lot. So still, the managers should make a plan. The managers should have, a perfect, game plan that how to resist, and how to manage, that resistance of the employees, and identify areas of support in resistance. So it should be clear that where the organization want to support, the employees for the change, in which areas of resistance can occur. And that area should be controlled, and time to time it should be evaluated. And the resistance of the employees should be managed effectively and perfectly. And also include everyone in the planning that will be affected. So it's quite crucial that the change process, we all know that it affects the whole system, the whole structure of the organization. If it's organizational change, so it affects the employees, it affects even the customers, it affects the stakeholders, in all those people who are in relation or connected to the organization. So while making a plan for change, the organizations, the managers, they should just include in the planning stage all those people, or all those stakeholders that who can be affected by the change. Establish target dates for implementation. Quite important. One of the most important element in the planning stage, that the activities should be just divided based on dates, or based on the required dates that the activity should be performed. So there should be a target specific date for activities to be implemented or to be performed, as we do it in project managements. While the project is implementing, there should be a specific date, a specific time for performing a specific activity. And also develop appropriate strategy for alteration. It means there should be a strategy for change, that how the organization is going to adopt the change. There are various strategies for bringing or for introducing change. So which strategy the organization can apply or can use for the best change or best effect of the change. Be available to support others through the process. Quite important, for the change managers, for the agents, that through the process, they should just, take people with themselves. It means, in each stage, there should be a support. There should be a kind of motivation, that they should motivate, the employees, for the change, and they should support them, for the change, and always, avoid their negative concerns regarding the change. evaluate the change, then modify if necessary. So time to time, there should be evaluation. There should be, monitoring. If something is going wrong, it's not going according to the plan, or it's not going the way it was planned before, so it should be modified. It should be changed, and then proceed once again. Coming to the reinforcing stage means like evaluation. Now it's the time that after the change is implemented, the business organization once again determining the effectiveness of change. So they are evaluating the end results, that whether the change was effective from the organizational perspective, in terms of even performance, effectiveness, profitability, even like customer satisfaction, even from the organizational structure process, and many more. So it can be seen from different angles whether the change was effective or not. Achieve objectives and benefits. Earlier on, in planning stage, the organization, they have set some goals, some objectives, for the change. So now in the reinforcing stage, the organization is going to compare the plan stage with the actual stage. It means what we planned and now actually where we are now. Did we achieve the goals, objectives that we wanted to achieve from bringing the change or not? So it might be qualitative or financial. Even from the quality perspective, I told you that performance betterment, customer satisfaction, or from the profitability. So it should be measured again. Stabilizing the change, taking measures to reinforce and maintain the change. If change was positive, if change was having good impact on the organization, so now the business organization should work for the betterment of this change, should work for the improvement of this change, and also stabilize the change, maintain this change. Now there are two types of approaches that the organization can adopt to a change process. The first one is the top-down approach. A top-down approach to change management implies that a change is imposed or initiated or started from the top to the bottom. So the top-down change is about making changes quickly. In this kind of change process or change approach, changes can happen quickly because this is like a kind of autocratic process in which the lower employees or the lower level managements are not involved. The decisions are only made at the top level. So that's why the changes are quickly in dealing with the problems only if necessary. It means something which can be very much necessary, so changes can happen in those areas. So leaders who make all these decisions and expect subordinates to follow. As we mentioned before, the decisions are made at top level and subordinates are all just they have to follow, right? And but in this sort of approach, normally there is like a kind of resistance to change because of what earlier on we said, that in this approach the employees are not involved. So if the employees are not involved in this change process and they're going to be affected by this change, so definitely they will show some resistance to change. And one thing more, that in this approach normally the decision making system is quite centralized. So this approach has some limitations. One, it doesn't involve the employees in decision making process, even that they are affected directly by the change. Second, the management style in this process is autocratic. The decision making is centralized. So they are just only answering or reaching those problems which are quite necessary. Coming down to the bottom-up approach. Bottom-up change, as it implies, or the name implies, shows that it seeks to involve those affected in the process of change. So in the bottom-up approach, the decisions can be made even in the lower level, or the change can be initiated in the even from the lower level, or even the lower level they are involved in the change process because they are affected by the change. This approach is based on collective decision making. It means here, so a collective decision can be made. Even the decision can be made by the lower level employees or the lower level management of the organization. But eventual decision or the final decision will be taken by the top level management. This approach, avoids the pitfalls, the dangers of imposed change by allowing individuals. It means in this approach, the change is not imposed on the lower level. Normally, the lower level is also involved in the change process by letting them, communicate with each other, by letting them to understand the change, to understand the effect of the change, on them. So we can say that, the bottom-up approach is totally like, a democratic approach because, it includes or involves all employees. They get their, like the chance to have, input and also find out, that, what's happening or what is the change for and what are the decisions to be taken about the change. So this is just like a kind of collective or participative management system for a change.